October the 31st. I live in the state of Colorado, and Denver is our biggest city. It is the capital of Colorado, and tonight Lizzo will be performing in concert. Sounds like a good time. That has nothing to do with Itaewon, obviously, but I mention it because I think about what it takes to get ready for a night out, especially a night out on a concert plus a big holiday. So Halloween is kind of both a kid and an adult holiday in America. It's a holiday for kids to dress up in costume and get candy. But for adults, it's a night to dress up in costume and get frisky and get rowdy and get wild. Um, and because of that, I'm just thinking about, like, who tends to get the most rowdy, the most wild on a Halloween night. And I'm imagining, you know, a girl or a guy in their early 20s through their late 20s, maybe early 30s, putting on, their finest outfit that they would never wear to work or to school or even just their day to day, but something completely extravagant, doing their makeup crazy and getting out with their best friends, maybe pre-gaming a little bit, taking a couple drinks, hitting the street and, ready to have a good time. And, just live life, especially after the last several years of dealing with the pandemic and, dealing with recessions and dealing with inflation and unemployment and family trauma. I imagine everybody was looking for a release, and you get out there and you're excited because you're going to see somebody in concert, or you're planning to hook up with somebody tonight, but you're planning on having a really good time and exploring what it means to be a young person, living your youth. And there's a bunch of people planning to do that tonight here in Denver. And there was a bunch of people planning to do that on a Saturday night in Itaewon, Korea. If you don't know by now, over 150 people have been declared dead because of a stampede in Itaewon, which is in a really nice area of Seoul, South Korea. Seoul is the capital of South Korea. There have been a lot of things that people have said have contributed to this stampede. What I've heard is that the new sorry about that, the new president of Korea, he no longer operates his government offices out of the Blue House, which was where the government offices have been located for forever. Instead, he now has all of his government offices near Itaewon. And because of that, it changed the crowd control measures that are normally done in Itaewon. There's a hotel called the Hamilton Hotel, and there's a main street in front of the Hamilton Hotel that normally Friday night, Saturday night, Halloween, there would be a lot of people in that main drag, but because it is considered kind of like an escape path to the president's offices, supposedly there was not as much crowd allowed on that street because it needed to be made always available and open for the president of Korea to get in and between offices just in case of an emergency, which I understand that. I mean, that is government protocol. They always put in these kind of emergency safety measures for the political leaders of the country. Well, because of that, a lot more people were entering side streets, narrow alleys in order to get from place to place. And Seoul is not flat. From what I understand, and if you've ever watched a K-drama, you should be aware, Seoul is like hilly, a lot of hills. And because of this, these alleys would sometimes be walking downhill to get to a club, a restaurant, a good time. And from what I've heard, someone traveling in one of these very narrow alleys fell. Them falling because they were traveling downhill. Other people weren't able to stop themselves from tripping over this person, and it was just an avalanche of human bodies. An avalanche of human bodies. And I know that's very graphic to say, and that's as graphic as I plan to be. I'm not going to talk about anything else, but I mean, you get the mental picture in your head of how does one breathe, how does one survive, how does one not get injured when you're under so many people, the average person weighing at least 140 pounds, at least. And so, yeah, a lot of people were injured and a lot of people perished. There was actually a young man who was on one of the produced shows, Lee Jihan. He passed away in this crush. And because of it, and it being such a big tragedy for young people of this age, uh, everything's canceled. SM Town canceled their Halloween Wonderland, which they should. A lot of groups that were planning dance practices, releases, video releases, all that shit's canceled right now, and for good reason, because this is probably the biggest one-time uh, loss of life since Sail Ferry back in 2014. So it makes sense that a lot of people would just not be in the mood to do happy things when they're still trying to identify young people. They're still trying to figure out who's where what, especially because, again, we just talked about, young people getting ready for a Friday, Saturday night party, and they're wearing costumes, and they may have on makeup, and maybe they don't have, all of their identification on them because they're planning to party and they don't want to lose their important paperwork. And so, from what I've been told, there have been students from foreign countries that have been lost in this tumult. There are really young people who remind me of myself when I was younger. Somebody who would pretend like they were a little bit older to get into a club, but maybe wasn't really old enough to get into a club, and got lost in the tumult. Yeah, it's a tragedy, and I do this, one, because it's awful that this happened, and over the years of listening to K-pop, I've come to care about Korea and its people because their culture has brought me a lot of joy over the last 10 years. Also, young people, I have a really soft spot in my heart for young people because I know how hard it is out here for you. I know how hard it is for the young people who are just trying to find their way in life, trying to have experiences, trying to do the things that their parents told them you need to get out of your system before you settle down with a family, kids, your permanent adulthood. And I know how hard it's been for young people because the economy hasn't been great. Opportunities have not been good. The housing market is crazy. People don't make the money that they used to, and the money doesn't go as far as it used to. And so people are looking for an outlet, a release, a place to just kind of throw off the shackles of the day-to-day and experience life the way that they were promised they were going to experience it when they were younger. And they go out to these party areas of town hoping to have a good time, and to go out there with the expectation that it's going to be a night to remember, and it turn into a night that no one could ever forget in the worst possible way is heartbreaking to me. It's heartbreaking to me. And so I extend my deepest condolences to every family there. What's even more tragic is when you hear the reports of people still partying in the region while all this is happening. And there's been a lot of vitriol and a lot of hate for the people that were still partying the night away. But I look at it this way. Just like I said, a lot of people had a hard time being identified because they weren't carrying their cell phones. They weren't carrying a lot of their identifying paperwork. There were a lot of people in the club who did not have their cell phone, who had no idea what was going on outside the club as they were in there having a good time. Those people weren't dancing on the graves of the folks who were dying in the street. Those people were in the club thinking that this was just Halloween. This was just Halloween. They had no idea. They had no idea. And if there are people who did know and decided to disregard the bodies on the street being given CPR, yeah, there's a special place in hell for you. But for the most part, the people that were still having fun and still partying in Itaewon were not people who were aware of how horrible things were outside of the club. And I have a lot of sympathy for them because I imagine the guilt is tremendous. I imagine the guilt of knowing I'm in here dancing my ass off, just trying to let go of all the worry, and people outside are dying. Why was that not me? Why wasn't I out there to help? Like, just the guilt is incredible. I saw a tweet that someone had put on Twitter about the fact that the generation caught in this stampede, a lot of them are the same generation that experienced the Itaewon Ferry tragedy and were the same age as those who died. And to have two huge losses of life to your demographic when you're still so young. I really hope that mental health becomes a priority for Korea. I hope that their new president starts to destigmatize wanting to seek professional help coping with trauma. I hope that they acknowledge as kind of a nationwide PTSD when people have been confronted with these kind of tragedies back to back to back, because it is a lot. It is a lot, you know. It leads to a level of hopelessness that people are already seeing. You know, it's not a coincidence that the men in Korea are so angry and that the Me Too movement has seen such a pushback in Korea. People get angry and they get mad and they get reactive when they feel like they're losing their power. And the young men who are mad at women for demanding their rights, that are mad at women for not wanting to be sexualized, that are mad at women for not wanting to be pushed into a gender role or into a cultural or societal role, are men who are already seeing their own ability to make money, their own ability to live the life that they thought they should have being eroded, because there aren't as many jobs as they thought there should be. There aren't as many opportunities as they thought there would be. Things aren't the way that they thought they were promised. And so they're being reactive and they're deciding it's the fault of the women in my community. That comes from a place. And mental health could help these people to identify your anger is misplaced. You should be mad at the government. You should be mad at big industry who has undermined the power of the worker. But instead, they're mad at women. Well, take an angry man, mad at women, mad because young people his same age are dying, both when he was very young and very vulnerable, and then now when he's a little bit older and maybe he's coming out of the fog. I'm scared. I'm scared for the trauma that this is going to cause a lot of people. I am scared for them. But I also hope that people make a swift and concerted effort to work towards healing, a swift and concerted effort towards making sure that we identify what the problem is, fix what the problem is, you know, go into this thing and say, instead of playing the blame game, even though there's plenty of blame, the police are understaffed, the president shouldn't have moved his offices, poor crowd control, all those things, those are blame game. But move past that and move into, this is what we're going to do to fix it. This is what we're going to do better. Move there. The other thing I'm really concerned about, only because, like, again, I care about people and I also have a lot of care and sympathy in my heart for members of the LGBTQIA plus community. Itaewon is traditionally known as the place you go to the drag bars, the gay bars. A lot of trans people go to Itaewon. A lot of times the party district is the place where people who have different identities go to feel a sense of community, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like they're welcome. And I could see a lot of backlash coming to these communities. And I sincerely hope that that's not the case. I sincerely hope they don't blame a heathenistic lifestyle for this crush of life, because that's not the cause. You know, the gay virus didn't come out and stampede these people. It was really and truly just a horrible set of circumstances. But I'm worried for their safety as well. I am. I'm worried for their safety. I'm thinking about the possibility, and I'm not saying it's a fact, but, you know, given the circumstances, I'm thinking of the young trans person who may have lost their life that night and is going to be buried with an identity that's not the identity that they normally claim. I'm thinking about the partners who are losing people that they love, and they're not going to be allowed to mourn for that person in the way that they would, because their family is still in charge of that person's body and their funeral arrangements. I'm just thinking about, again, people on the verge of living the rest of their lives and how tragic it is for these young people to lose their lives in the way that they did under the circumstances. How terrifying it had to have been the trauma that those who are still alive to witness it are going to be living with, and how unless something changes in terms of addressing mental health, there will be no one to address this trauma with them. It's just sad all the way around. It's sad all the way around. Um, so now on to the K-pop portion of this. When the Sewol Ferry tragedy happened, a lot of XOLs showed their ass. If you weren't into K-pop at the time, you won't remember. I remember. Overdose was supposed to come out, and a lot of XOLs were very much like, when is the song? When is the song? Show me the song. Literally, children had died. They were teenagers, but I call them children. Children had died. They were mad that the promotions had gotten pushed back because they wanted their music. They wanted to see their faves. And I remember what a fucking black eye on K-pop that was. And I haven't seen anybody show their ass so far about the fact that a lot of Jen's stuff has been pushed back due to all this, but I just want to put that bug in your ear. Don't be that person mad because your faves event got pushed back, your faves concert got pushed back, your faves video got pushed back, any of that stuff. Don't be so quick to be like, this is bullshit. Why is this affecting my entertainment? Because you're going to look like an ass. No one appreciates that. Now is not the time. You'll get it when you get it. But right now, let people grieve. You know, these people that died, a lot of them are the same age as your favorite idols. This hits close to home for them. Even though you say, why? Why would that hit close to home? It wasn't them. Why would that hit close to home to them? I remember when Hurricane Katrina happened, my daughter was a very little baby sitting in my lap, and I was watching TV and watching black women with their little babies in their laps crying because they had no food and they could not get out of New Orleans, and everything they had was destroyed and their baby was hungry. And I remember sitting in my living room crying because I could see myself in the person on the news, and I could put myself in their place, and it affected me and it hurt me. And I imagine it's the same thing for your favorite idol, to see people who are like them, young people, same period in life, same age, crying because they lost their friends. Yeah, so give them time. Give them time to process this. Give them time to decide how they want to move forward from this. Because it's a lot. It is a lot. It's a big deal. So be kind and be patient. The only other thing I'm going to say is there has been some trending stuff about DPR's Ian, Christian Yu. I'm not going to go into it, number one, because the details are sketchy and I don't want to make something bigger than what it is, but apparently he's going through a bit of a mental health crisis right now. If you are a fan, you know, please be supportive of him. I can't imagine this came at any worse time than it did. To be fragile mentally and then seeing this on the news has got to be awful. So I'm wishing him the best. I hope he doesn't do something stupid. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this. I don't want to be super cheery. I don't want to be inappropriate. I don't want to say anything too out of turn. I just want to kind of give you guys a little discussion about like how this is more than just the people who died in Itaewon. It's also all of the people who see themselves in this, how this was just supposed to be a normal evening out, and how much it's going to affect people moving forward. And you know, just extend a little understanding. Extend a little understanding about the situation. Be sensitive if you can, because no one wanted this. No one wanted this. It is a tragedy in every sense of the word. It's horrible to lose young people like this. It's horrible to do something that everyone does and to have it end in such a horrific way. It's horrible that socially it's going to be hard to get the support you need in order to be able to heal from this, and I hope that that's not the case. So that's all I want to say, is just, you know, be kind, be understanding, be sensitive, and if you're not Korean like me, Try your hardest to allow them to deal with things the way that they deal with things. Because even though I do hope that this brings more opportunity for mental health awareness to be discussed, Korea's gonna Korea. And if they decide that's not the way they want to respond, that's not my country. And I too will have to be understanding of the fact that they decide to go a different route in terms of addressing this. So thank you guys for being here with me. Thank you for tuning in. I hate to talk about stuff like this. I really do, because it's so hard. The older I get, the more sentimental I get. And being at the age I am now and thinking about young people, it just hurts. As a parent, it hurts. There are people in this crowd who could have been my children, and it hurts. So yeah, I'm very sad. I'm very sad that this happened. And I just, they're poor parents, the parents of these children. You know, a lot of Koreans don't have a lot of kids. It's so socially, they don't have a lot of kids. Most Korean families might have 2 children, but a lot of them only have 1. And I am a parent of 1. And I cannot imagine waking up one day as a parent and going to bed without a child. Horrifying. Horrifying. Even more if your child was one of the several foreign students who got killed, and your child is so far away from home, and now you're having to figure out how to bring your child back. You let your child leave to go do something fun and exciting, to go do something life-changing, and they don't come back home. They don't come back home. It makes me want to cry. It really does. It makes me want to cry. So anyway, thank you for joining me. I'll talk with you guys later.